I notice that I've been joined by my wonderful friend, an extraordinary representative from the great state of New York, representing the Hudson River Valley in the Capital Region. We had a discussion last night about a piece of this, and I've been waiting for you to arrive when we could talk about how the balanced budget amendment and the cuts in the legislation that was passed yesterday would affect women. We just had 20 women from the Republican Party here telling us that we ought to enact a balanced budget amendment. What does it mean for women who are 65 and over? Well, Mr. Tonko, would you please join us and enter this conversation?
Thank you, Representative Garamendi, and thank you for bringing us together on some very important discussion and a laser-sharp focus, which is essential as we face this default crisis, where there are those who are dragging their feet and not resolving the default crisis and refuse to have us pay our bills. And when we default on our debt, it's very problematic because it can disrupt our pensions, it can disrupt our 401ks, it can disrupt our mortgages because of the interest rate being somewhat fluctuated by that default crisis and our failure to pay our bills. What I think is important here is that you outline how unfair this process can be, how it can be rooted to support easily deep pockets, efforts to give windfall industries a mindless handout. The big oil companies getting a handout, it's much easier to retain that benefit, and it's very difficult to save Medicare. It's a simple majority that can end Medicare. Many of us go home every week, others as frequently as they can because of the distance they have to travel to get to their districts, and we're greeted by signs like this: hands off my Medicare. And it's no wonder, because what we've seen yesterday was the third attempt in this given few months of the 112th Congress to end Medicare. 3 votes, one with a Republican study committee, one with a Ryan plan, a path to prosperity, which we have redesignated the road to ruin, and then yesterday with this cut, burn, and whatever, slash and burn attempt. I won't even get into the nomenclature because it's inappropriate. It's misrepresenting what would really happen. Yesterday we had a vote on this floor to make it easy to end Medicare and easy to maintain handouts to the oil companies. And when we look at the dollars that are saved by ending Medicare, we see where they somehow are transitioned over to tax cuts that are maintained for the millionaire, billionaire community, mindless handouts to the big oil industry. So this is buyer beware week. We've seen this 3 times over, and it's an assault on the middle class. When you talk about the impact on women, you know, an armchair scientist can take a look at that population of seniors and understand that the proportional representation to the greater degree is women in that category. So this is an assault on senior women who require Medicare. And you know, we talked about this last night on the floor, that things have changed since 1965. When, you know, President Truman and Mrs. Truman were the first to sign up for Medicare with that wonderful legislation, they began a process of dignity for our nation's seniors, where affordable, accessible care, a certainty in their lives, became a much needed concept, because there was cherry picking going on. There was the unaffordable notion, the inaccessible notion of health care insurance coverage. And to put that now at risk and develop and mess with our Constitution to make that all work, it's no wonder Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal, called it a very foolish approach. They labeled it in just very negative tones. And certainly Bruce Bartlett, who was the economic advisor to President Reagan, said that it was akin to an intern writing a bill on a napkin. Well, I think that's a pretty tough slam. They would do better. So we need to go forward with sensible strategies. We need to solve the default crisis. And let's face it, it should be about investing in jobs. The jobs crisis is the #1 priority of the American public. We see it in public opinion survey over and over again. And that job crisis, when we resolve it, addresses any revenue crisis, any spending crisis, any deficit crisis. This is the best solution. Create jobs, invest in innovation, infrastructure, education.
Mr. Tonko, once again, you are on the right track here.